Alright folks, so in this video, as promised, I'm going to go ahead and help you configure the storefront, the storefront, and so that we're able to deliver the apps. Now in 7.x series we call it delivering the app because it's delivered through the delivery controller. In 6.5 and previous versions we used to call it publishing, and as it was actually that was the terminology used. Now in terms of this is concerned, first and foremost what we need to do is on our XenApp server we need to go into our Citrix installations and program files, Citrix, and the XenDesktop VDA setup. And then within this setup, we'll actually have the VDA setup. So this is post installation of your XenApp server. So I haven't gone through that because everyone knows how to do that because we discussed that plenty of times in the class. Now we're just going to go ahead and customize this. Now I have already done this previous to the installation, or the video I should say. However, I'm still going to go through the motions just so that you know where it is. Now while this is coming up, I'm just going to go ahead and start the installation of the storefront, and that is okay. So we're just going to go ahead and mount our drive really quickly. So settings, and then the 7.6 ISO. And all we're installing on this particular server, which is our storefront server 01. First of all, before we do that, good thing that we are here. We just need to go ahead and quickly do a domain join to the domain, and that's netsoft our local administrator password. This will take a few seconds. I'm just going to check if I have the snapshot. Yeah, I have, so I don't have to worry about that. So this takes a little bit time, so don't think it's actually stuck or anything. Unfortunately, it just takes a little bit of time. So this I had already done once I've actually launched the studio, and then in the studio I had said configure the site. Unfortunately, I didn't go through the site setup. That you guys already know. Make sure you choose. You don't change the port on the XenApp server, but on this it just was pretty straightforward, and I just tested the site, made sure that all of the tests passed. Okay. Now we're gonna go back. Make sure you're doing this on the administrator, not on your local computer. Rather, I meant to say domain administrator. Alright, so the server is up. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly switch off the firewalls. Alright, there you go. So the firewalls are off. Now we're just going to go ahead and install the storefront. Okay, there you go. So we're just going to go ahead and quickly read our license terms. Wow, I really read really fast. So there you go, core components. We're just going to leave everything exactly the way it is. Just press next, install, and this will probably take just 2 minutes. So while the storefront is actually installing, I'm going to go back to the XenApp server, okay, and in here we'll go ahead and configure it. Now I personally like to go ahead and do everything manually, but if you want you can actually choose locations from Active Directory. I guess it didn't come up. Okay, never mind. But nevertheless, so here it's actually asking for the domain, not the domain controller, but the Citrix delivery controller. So we're going to type in the server address, so NCI CDC 01, Now, if we try it with a test connection, it won't go. So we need to do it with the FQDN. So netsoft dot local. Now, if we test the connection, there you go. It's check mark. We add it. Brilliant. Press next. Now, please keep this at 80. If you change the port, then you might run into issues. So just keep that for now at port 80. And over here, what's going to do is going to reconfigure the server at that particular port. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and click on reconfigure. So this will reconfigure the VDA agent, or the VD agent, virtual delivery agent. And once it's reconfigured, we're going to go ahead and set up the other components. Alright, so that took a minute or two. I just pause it. So it's just going to ask you to restart your machine. So go ahead and click finish. And it will go ahead and restart the server. So here the storefront is still going on, so I'm just going to pause it again once the storefront is installed. What I'm actually going to go and do is start up with my second storefront server and start the installation there as well. Alright, so the second server is not connected or not joined to the domain as of yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then in the meantime, I'm going to pause and have the storefront server on that installed as well. Alright folks, so on my first storefront server, all the components installed, and just says open the storefront console management, or management console. Now before we go ahead and do that, I'm just going to show you a little quick trick. What you can do is go into your internet options, and in your internet options on the advanced folder, you can scroll down under security, and there's this one, check for publisher's certificate revocation. So make sure you uncheck this. As soon as you click on it, it will uncheck it. You apply. This will speed up your console when it says adding the snap-in. Okay. So there you go. So it just popped right up. So it didn't have to go to the server to check the revocation list. So if you, because that needs internet, so I just keep on doing it. So just best that you go into your internet options of each and every server, unless you have set that up through your GPO, so that's a different story. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my Citrix server, or rather the XenApp server. Okay, looks like oh. Okay, I'm not sure why this is the case. Okay, let's try it one more time. netsoft. Looks like I was typing it wrong. Okay. So we had already done the setup, so we don't need to do anything with Citrix XenApp server, unless you want to go ahead and install new applications. And if you want to do that, we can go ahead and really quickly do that. What can we install? So what we'll need to do... Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly install an app. Okay, it doesn't look like that actually. Oh, okay, so here you go. So let's see if we have the WinRAR application installed. Okay, so it doesn't look like that we have WinRAR installed, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly install the WinRAR. Alright, so there you go, the WinRAR has been installed. So now we're going to go back to our delivery controller, and we're going to go ahead and we can set it up through here, or we can just go and right click on machine catalogs and create a new machine. So it does the same thing. So we're going to go to the Windows Server OS and then add our XenApp server. So again, what I did was add computer, advanced, and find now, and all the servers are listed here. We're just looking for our XenApp server, or XenDesktop or XenApp server. So here's our XenApp server. Click OK. Alright. Next. Just gonna call it anything. You can call it anything you want. I'm just gonna call it my catalog one. Okay. Now keep in mind, in machine catalogs we are defining our servers, and then in our delivery group we are giving those users rights on those applications. Alright, so these are the applications that are going to be delivered to users as well. So we're going to go ahead and right click and create new delivery group. Next. And number of machines for this delivery group, we only have one, so we're just going to click one. We're not delivering desktops and a combination of that, so we're just going to leave it at applications. Now this is where we're going to give those authorized users, so those are all the domain users. Now you could have a different group, we just chose domain users. A list of applications available to be delivered or /published are available. Now you'll see that WinRAR is one of the applications that we had installed. Now keep in mind, this is an application that we installed on the XenApp server, and that's the reason why it's listed over here. Okay, so we're going to share that. We're going to share calculator and the CMD just for an example. And we can just call this new delivery group. Okay. Again, you'll go by whatever naming convention your project requires. In our scenario, we're just calling it a new DG. Alright, so there you go. It's been published. Now keep in mind that we got to check for registered machines. We have one. That means we do have one server that will be delivering our apps or our desktops. So we have one over here. If it says 0, then that means you will not be able to. Okay. Now for the storefront. Now first and foremost, we'll have to go back and set up our site. So we're just going to go to our create a new deployment for our site. Now in our scenario, we are going to go and create two different storefront servers, 1 and 2. So it gives you two options: create a new deployment or join an existing one. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and create one. Thereafter we'll be able to join it. Okay, and if we have any issues, we'll be able to troubleshoot it, and I want to make sure that you understand why we're troubleshooting it and why it actually didn't happen or didn't work out for us, and then how we can troubleshoot it as well. So create a new deployment, and then this is we can change the base URL if you'd like, but I'll recommend to keep it the way it is. And this is the name of the server 1. Okay, the storefront server 1. So next. Now we're going to keep everything exactly the way it is, or default, and later scenarios will be changing it as well. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and give it a storefront name. Now I'm just going to call this NCI store. Okay. Now keep in mind that whatever store name that you give, automatically web will be appended to it, because that's the way it actually works. So keep that in mind. So anything that you name, and then no slash, but if you name it case store, then it's going to be web. NCI store, then web after that as well. Now here we're going to add the domain, again, sorry, I apologize, not domain controller, but the delivery controller. So we're going to add the name of that delivery controller. We call it NCI Citrix Domain Controller Server 01. That's what we have in our project. We're going to change this to HTTP because we're not actually going through the secure. So HTTP, that changes to port 80, which is great. and there you go. So that server has been added. Now press next. Just go through the default. We're not going through the tunnel, and this will take a minute or so. Alright, here we go. So that has been created, the storefront. So if we click on this link, it should take us there. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned, that the web gets appended. So your URL is NCI, and then the base URL NCI Citrix Server Storefront 01, and then /Citrix/NCI Store, the name that you gave, and then web. Yeah, we don't want it to prompt continuously. Add this, close, and there you go. So at least we know it's actually working. So we're going to close this out. Now for our second server, we're going to go ahead and it's already been installed. We're just going to go ahead and open the Snap-in, and you'll see how fast it's opening. It's not actually taking a lot longer than it actually generally does. So we're just going to go ahead and join the existing server. So for that, it will ask us for the authorizing server and authorization code. So we'll have to go back to our first storefront server, and so on our first server, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our server group, and we're simply going to go ahead and add a server. So this is our server. We're going to take this, copy this information into the second one, copy the authorization code, and press join. This will take a minute, and that should join the. And this will, what this will do is it will actually create a server group, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create NLB round, that will create the round robin rather. So we're going to go back into our domain controller, into our DNS, and first and foremost we're just going to go ahead and create a new reverse lookup zone. So new, next, 172.16.10, next. There you go. So we have that. So in here we're just going to go ahead and create a round robin, and how we create that is actually quite simple. New host A record. We're going to call this my store, okay, and we're going to give the IP address for the first server, and just to make sure that we have it right, we're going to check this from here. Our first server, I put the IP address as 60. You will probably have it as 30, but okay. So there you go. First one's created. Now we're going to take the same information, my store, and the IP address for the second one is storefront server is 172.16.10, and I give the IP address 61 as shown over here. Voila. So we have created the round robin for that. Okay. So 60 and then 61, because my storefront server first one was 60, the second one was 61. All right. So that's been taken care of as well. So now what we can do is, just to test it out, we can do two things. But let's try one thing real quick. We'll ping it. So if we ping mystore.netsoft.local, it should ping. See? Because it's pinging one of these servers. So it actually pinged 60. Now we could also do ns lookup. Oh, can't find it. I forget how to. 1 second. There you go. So I pinged 60, and it's giving me that. Now if I were to, and let's look up 172.16.10.61. There you go. So my round robin is set up. Looks like the server is still joining. The storefront is still joining. It will take a few minutes, so I'm just going to pause it until it finishes. Alright folks, so this second storefront was successfully added. So it says okay. Let's check the first one. Still says okay, was added from 01. So we'll let the first storefront finish as well, and then we'll be right back to it. Alright, so it says status completed. So brilliant. And it got propagated as well, so that's wonderful. So our base URL is that, and our store is NCI store. Keep in mind that actually we need to append web after that, so we'll leave that one there. Now we're going to go back to our delivery controller, and for our storefront we're just going to go ahead and quickly add that in our storefront server name. Now we'll give the server name, the very first one, NCI CSF01, description for store. Again, we'd have to give a better description, but nevertheless, HTTP. Now we can give the complete one, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to give the one that actually shows up here. We can copy it from here. Alright. So if we want, we can just quickly add the web as well, just so that we know for future reference as well. Click OK. And once the storefront server has been added, what we're going to do is we're going to test it out. We're going to go to our workstation machine, and there you go. It's loaded up. Our domain name. We're going to users. Aha, I was hoping we'll get this error. So this error is because of the fact of sometimes it's the port, sometimes it's how we set it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset up everything. And it's again the steps, so we should have created the storefront first and done that. But just so that we're on the same page, I'm going to go back to our delivery controller. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We had added the storefront server. We're going to simply go ahead and delete that. We're going to go back into our delivery group and delete that. Now we could troubleshoot this, but I just want to do it really quickly. To troubleshoot it, what you'll need to do is go back to the VDA setup and ensure that the ports are right, and then just quickly do a reconfigure as well. That would help too. Okay, so create a new machine catalog, add a computer, MC1, delivery group, domain users, and for application, let's just pick calculator, command prompt, and since we had installed WinRAR. go back here, add the storefront. Actually, we're gonna go ahead and add the storefront name through our round robin. Actually, that was in our DNS. And we had called it My Store. So, My Store. We'll leave it down, okay? Now let's try it. My Store, Citrix, NCI Store Web. Still not showing the applications. Now troubleshoot this. Okay, so after spending 15 minutes, I figured out what was the issue. The issue is actually over here. See, the problem is when we're creating the store, it does not authenticate, it does not validate across the system whether or not we are putting a right domain controller information or not. We could put Timbuktu, we could put anything which is nowhere resembling to our environment, and it will still accept it, and that's an issue over here. So I made a little bit of a mistake, and when I was creating first of all our domain controller name, apologize, not the domain controller, our delivery controller name, if you come back to here, is NCI XenDesktop 01. And if I were to look at the storefront and I go manage delivery controllers, and in the delivery controllers, if I click edit, you'll see over here I have given a wrong delivery controller delivery controller name. So what we need to do is we'll just simply go ahead and instead of editing it, we're just going to go ahead and remove it, add a new one. So NCI XenDesktop 01. So that was a mistake that we had done. So press OK, and then let it do its business. Voila. So now if we go back here and we refresh, hopefully we'll bring it. So there you go. So now it's not giving us that error, and we simply go ahead and add it, and we can add all the apps that we want to deliver. And if we click on, let's say, calculator, for the first time I'll ask for the permission settings, and once we say allow permissions always, so then it shouldn't have any issues. So permit use, and then I will launch the calculator app. We can check whether or not this is a local calculator or whether it's a delivered calculator, a stream calculator, by clicking on that and pressing Shift F2. So you'll see that it is within the Citrix Receiver window. Okay, so brilliant. So we have been able to launch this application. So if we try it again, and there you go. So Shift F2, great. So we know it's actually Citrix Receiver application. And we can click on command prompt. There you go. If I press Shift F2, and it opens up in the receiver window. Okay, so we have our calculator there. We have our command prompt there as well. Any other applications will be open, and will open up in that receiver window as well. Okay. All right, great. So just to recap, what we did was first and foremost our client license server. We set that up. Then we set up our studio and installed our studio, and then within our then we installed our XenApp server, and then of course we left it at port 80, and then we set up our storefront. You might be doing it in a different manner that you are setting up a storefront first. It doesn't make a difference. You can set it up first or later. It's independent. So once you set that up, you then go ahead and join the second server, and how you do that is by simply coming to the first storefront server, clicking on action and adding a server, and then if you add the server, and it will give you an authentication code and the authorization server. Okay, so we don't need to do that right now, but eventually you'll get this. Propagation changes were accepted. Then once that happens, we can go back into our delivery controller in our studio, and then over there we can set up our machine catalogs, then the delivery, and then we can add the storefront server. Now when I had set up the storefront server, I set it up through our round robin DNS. So in our DNS we had actually done a round robin, if you remember, and that's over here, and we have given the host a record as my store. So we use that same information while setting up our store here. So all I did was add a store, gave that store name server, my store, and then whatever description, and then of course I gave it again the my store, and then / Citrix, and then the store name. Okay, so which is over here if you look at it. You could actually change that again if I were to change it. So edit. Okay, so my store, that information will be changed over here. Okay, so there you go. Now if I were to go back here, let's see if it actually stays. I'm gonna go ahead and log off and log back in. There you go. Alright, so if you have any questions, just watch the video again. I apologize if you need any information. You can see me in class. Alright, thanks. Cheers, all the best.